Welcome back, Sports Nation and my champions. And today we're going to be starting a new series. It's called Fantasy Focus, where we're going to be looking at individual NFL teams and their fantasy ramifications. And what better way to start than the Juggernaut known as the Kansas City Chiefs? So let's get right into it. But before we get into the offense, I want to take a minute here to explain how we're going to be evaluating this. Now, I'm going to be using what I call keys and ciphers. If you see my videos before, I like to use graphical representations to evaluate things such as predictions, rumors, etc. So first thing, as far as ground rules go, we're going to be basing the data that we have off of the ESPN PPR scoring system. So if you're in a different league, your mileage may vary a little bit. And this is the format we're going to be using. So we're going to have color codes by position. So quarterback, for example, is going to be in blue here. So the example here is Patrick Mahomes. Now this means he finished in 2020 as the QB4, the fourth best quarterback. Now this means this is his average draft position, ADP, coming right now based on ESPN live draft data. So he's going around 20.8 pick overall, which makes him the first quarterback on average being taken in live drafts. And then we're going to be using what I call ciphers here to kind of explain, and I'll get into this right now. So I'm going to be using some graphical representation. So the first one here is this 100. I feel that this player is a good value here based on his ADP and what he can bring to the table. Now, I'll give a thumbs up if I think it's solid. Maybe it's not as good of a value draft-wise, but he's still a good player and he's worthy to be selected. Now, this one is kind of thinking about it's kind of questionable. Now, this could be based on performance of the player, but it could also be based on where he's currently going as far as your average draft position. It may or may not be suitable to pick him there. And then, the thumbs down would be poor value. And then our last one would be a sleeper. If there's any ones that are kind of on the fringe people aren't really thinking about, I'll add those as well. So let's get right into it. So let's start on the offensive side of the ball. Now I'm going to talk about a few key players. I'm not going to mention every single player, just ones I think are worthy of discussion right now. Obviously the first one would be their signal caller, Patrick Mahomes. And I talked about before, he ended up as QB4 last year. He's going at about the 20th overall pick in live drafts right now, which makes him the top quarterback being selected in these live drafts. And I did put this down as a questionable, not for the fact that of his ability. I think he's a great quarterback. He'll probably end up in the top 5, but this draft position may be a little bit overvalued for him. I mean, you're basically drafting him at his ceiling. Now, I did have a video previously as far as a couple quarterback targets that I think could crack this top 5 from last year. And these guys, you could probably get these guys anywhere from the end of the 4th round all the way maybe even to the early 6th round, which is a lot more value. It might be more beneficial for you to select one of those guys later and focus on either running back or wide receiver, with your 2nd round pick than taking Patrick Mahomes. Next player I want to talk about is Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who finished as running back 22 last year. He's going as 35 ADP, and that puts him at about the 17th best running back being selected. Now, I would say this is solid value. I would say that's probably more of his floor. I'm kind of expecting that he's going to get more work this year in his 2nd year. Plus, with the offensive line changes and woes that they had, especially in the Super Bowl, I think they're probably going to want to run the ball a little bit more. Plus, obviously, he can catch the ball out of the backfield, so he could very well get around that RB10 spot is my guess. So this is good value for him. And the next guy is Tyreek Hill, absolute stud, one of the best wide receivers in the game, obviously. Finishes wide receiver 2 last year. And he's going at 10th overall, which is the 2nd best wide receiver being taken on average. Solid value here, especially if you're at the end of the 1st round. Maybe a lot of the stud elite running backs are already gone. It might behoove you to pick this guy up and then back him up with a running back in the 2nd round as you sneak around in the draft. Let's talk about Travis Kelce. This is kind of similar, He's the best. He's been the best tight end probably since Gronk was in his heyday a few years back, and it shows. And his ADP is at 7.9, even higher than Tyreek Hill, and he's being selected as the top tight end overall. And again, I think this is solid value for him. And he, frankly, he's earned it. Especially, I did do a tight end video. You can go check that out. I'll put a link in the description below. But basically, there's usually only 2 or 3 elite tight ends, and it behooves you to go grab one of those. So I don't have an issue with that. So let's take a look at the defensive side of the ball here. So they ended up last year as the 15th best defense, middle of the road, and they're being drafted accordingly this year. Pretty late, drafted as the 17th best defense. And let's take a look at some of their impact players. The back end is where they thrive with Thornhill and the Honey Badger. They still have their 2 main pass rushers intact here in Jones and Clark. And then they drafted Nick Bolton, a nice middle linebacker last year. So I think he'll be a welcomed addition, especially trying to stop the run. But I don't really see the value here fantasy-wise. I don't see them improving upon either their turnovers or their sacks. They only got 16 turnovers last year. That was only 29th best in the league. They only had 32 sacks, which was 19th best. I don't see the value here. Usually in 12-team leagues, you can do much better and just focus on their offensive weapons. If you did enjoy this video, why not give it a thumbs up, like, share, and subscribe. Put your comments in the section below. I read every single comment and I respond to just about every single comment as well. If you want to catch up to our 31 and 31 video series, click on these links right here. Thanks for watching and supporting this channel, and as always, play like a champion.